For more on how to break the cycle of deforestation, we're joined now by Kari Fulton. She's an activist for environmental justice. Kari, great to see you again.
It's wonderful to see you as well. How are you?
I'm doing very well, but I want to ask you, as we saw in our story, this is part of a tough cycle for Venezuelans to break. They need food and energy to survive, but they're also contributing to deforestation. So what is the answer for developing countries like Venezuela? Is this where richer countries help and step in?
Well, that's a great question, and it's a hard answer to know. One of the biggest things is where are we pushing people to, and also how is it for people to get the resources. Sometimes when resources are scarce, especially in developing countries, people are more likely to burn wood because there are scarcities of other things like maybe oil or even renewables. And so people see profit in cutting and deforestation, and that's unfortunate. And that also leads to issues for indigenous communities and forest-dwelling people who subsist on the natural elements of our forests and of our jungles and of our tree carbon sinks.
On one hand, Kari, we're seeing so much drought in many parts of the world, heat waves. How dangerous is deforestation to the world, and what is the larger impact there?
I mean, it's a huge, huge issue. Deforestation leads to a third of our carbon emissions each year when we're talking about just the overall conversation, not even just of deforestation, but also of our agriculture and how we utilize our land. And when we cut down these really important carbon sinks that also take in they take in 16 billion metric tons of carbon each year, and they hold it and they keep us healthy. So when we cut down those trees, especially these old historic trees, then it just pushes up carbon emissions into the world, and it increases our greenhouse gas emissions, which leads to more droughts, which leads to more resource scarcity, which also leads to windier areas and also changes in the environment where we live. So it's a huge, huge issue. And people might be getting a little bit of profit in a short term, but long term, we're losing out majorly.
And when you're talking about the impact of lost trees because of deforestation, I mean, you really can't plant or replace them fast enough, can you? I mean, what's the answer there?
No, you cannot replant them fast enough, especially when you're talking about old historic trees. You're talking about trees that may be hundreds, if not thousands of years old, and you're cutting them down. So they're not going to be able, you're also talking about the loss that comes to the overall ecosystem and to the plants and wildlife that depend on these elder trees. And also, a lot of times what happens is that in order to try and quickly replant, it leads to monoculture, and that is not something that is sustainable.